Adin Ross ignores Joe Rogan and makes everyone uncomfortable. We have Joe Rogan, Dana White, Kyle from NELK, a streamer named Cody, and the streamer Adin Ross. Our focus at first will be on Kyle's interaction with Joe, and then we will shift our focus to Aiden's high-stress interactions with Joe. Joe Rogan enters, and we immediately see two things. The first being that Kyle, Aiden, and the rest of the people at the table all notice Joe Rogan's entrance. The second being that they are all elated and overcome with happiness. We see the immediate elation as Kyle looks back to his friends behind the camera. What we see next is super interesting. Kyle notices the overexcitement from his friends and non-verbally scorns them through frowning his eyebrows and maintaining piercing eye contact, sending them the message to be cool. Kyle looks back at the table, but now intentionally masking his happiness and elation. What is the purpose of this? And what is the psychology behind intentionally masking your elation when meeting someone important? Emotional suppression occurs and is most effective when people feel low in the social hierarchy. Overly enthusiastic reactions might be perceived as intrusive or excessive by the admired individual, leading to a potential rejection or a negative evaluation. So in an attempt to raise their perceived status, Kyle and Aiden mask their happiness in order to imply to everyone around them that they are used to being around people of massive influence. When Joe sees that Kyle is not losing his mind to meet him, Kyle is hoping that this causes Rogan to come to the realization that he is of similar caliber to him and is therefore more worthy of a potential friendship. It is important to note here that this strategy is most effective when you are the lowest in the current social hierarchy. As we will soon see, if you are in the middle of the social hierarchy, like Aiden is, hiding your emotions could be counterintuitive and cause you to be perceived as insecure and unconfident with your current standing. Kyle bares his teeth with a full smile, and Joe Rogan meets him with a half smile. Kyle immediately feels that he showed too much emotion, and we see this in the quickness in which he hides his smile after the two meet. Kyle's anxiety in a moment like this causes him to feel that he blatantly overextended and showed his cards, and we see him experiencing some negative emotions after this as he hunches over onto the table. But the reality is that the overextension was quite minimal. Rogan leaves the table and Kyle leaves soon after, giving Aiden and his friends some time to think and strategize internally before Rogan comes back. And when he does come back, Aiden makes a drastic strategic play against him.
Sports Nation.
Joe Rogan returns, and although Aiden is out of camera, he will be back in camera very soon.
Yeah, it's still the play, man. It's still the play. Yeah. I'll see you there, man.
Joe Rogan notices that the filmer is intentionally lifting the camera up in order to get him in the shot, and makes direct eye contact with the camera. This is extremely counterintuitive for Aiden and his friends because it discredits their previous strategy of masking their emotions, because it points to the idea that they are secretly fans. Aiden and his filmer don't realize that Rogan notices them, and as we will soon see, it is only going to hurt the efficacy of the strategies that Aiden implements in the near future.
Are you 22 or?
We see Dana tell Joe about Aiden's current losses, and then we see Joe look over at Aiden behind the camera. A look like this from someone of much greater influence is an invitation to establish the connection. The important thing is to be ready for it. We will soon be able to see more than we see right now. However, given how the following interactions go between Aiden and Joe, we can infer now that Aiden was not ready for or anticipating Joe's glance. Aiden begins to make his move, and this is where things get interesting.
Yo, Joe. Yeah. You staying at it? It's all good. That's right here. It's a camera. That's right.
Aiden comes in order to say goodbye to Dana. But in order to get to Dana, we see Aiden go to the right of the guy standing behind Dana, even though there is more physical room on the left side. Aiden does this because the more power a person has, the larger their perceived personal space is. And so Aiden hopes that by avoiding Joe Rogan, he can respect Rogan by respecting his space. In any interaction, the closer someone physically moves towards a reactant, the more positive effects there will be, only up until the point where the person gets too close to the reactant and the threat threshold of the reactant is reached. The threat threshold, also known as the beginning of one's personal space, becomes larger and larger the more powerful a person is. Therefore, explaining why Aiden choosing to give Rogan more personal space is an acknowledgement of Rogan's status. When we enter someone's personal space, we demand their attention. Aiden was attempting to be polite by not taking up any of Joe's time, but Aiden failed to realize that by entering Joe's personal space, Joe's attention was already on him. The reason this is so disrespectful and ends up having the opposite effect of Aiden's intention is that in the beginning, Aiden subconsciously acknowledged Joe's power by taking a different route in order to get to Dana. When Aiden finally entered Joe's personal space, therefore demanding his attention, Aiden failed to acknowledge Joe on an individual level. And we see Joe tighten his lips to contain and stifle his emotion and inner turmoil. Joe's subconscious mind is essentially telling his body to close down and not let anything out. The following interaction goes sour because Joe feels his attention was demanded by someone who is not even cognizant of his surroundings.
Sorry.
Dana immediately notices Aiden's impropriety and prompts him to introduce himself to Joe. And we see Joe is visibly uncomfortable after the interaction. Joe tightens his lips again and raises his shoulders up to his neck. The pursed lips show us discontentment, and the raised shoulders show us discomfort and confusion. The gesture indicates the person's attempt to shrug off the awkwardness or discomfort of the situation, serving as a physical release of pent-up emotions. It's also a subconscious effort to protect oneself, as raising the shoulders protects our neck, and it's a natural response to feeling vulnerable or threatened. Leading up to the meeting with Joe Rogan, Aiden masked his positive emotion in order to be perceived as higher status. While Aiden took intentional measures, things went sour quickly when Aiden entered Joe's personal space, indirectly demanding his attention, and didn't even acknowledge him. Dana having to prompt Aiden does not save Aiden in any way, as we see Joe Rogan's discomfort on full display after Aiden leaves. Emotional suppression is most effective when one is lowest on the current social hierarchy, which Aiden was not. It is important to anticipate and be ready for potential openings in the conversation that the higher status individuals offer. If one fails to catch these signals, it only affects the potential relationship negatively. It is important to recognize that the more powerful a person is, the larger their perceived personal space is. When you enter someone's personal space, it is no longer time to play it cool, because by the nature of entering someone's personal space, you are demanding their attention. What are your thoughts on this fascinating interaction? Like the video and subscribe because it shows me what you want to see more of. Follow the newsletter on strategic communication linked in the description because it contains beneficial information. My name is Glidget Ronan. Thank you so much for watching.